Okie doke, I think we're live. Thanks, Tim and Ria, for joining me on this call. Just for those that don't know who we are, I'm Steve Hubbard. I'm the director and social media marketer at Diffy Social, and we have Ria. You are?
Hello, I'm the Diffy social media marketer for Mawson Lakes, just north of Adelaide, and I also help Steve in our PR for Diffy Social.
Awesome. And you, Timbo?
Hi, I'm Tim. I'm a podcast host of Been Talking with Peak Performers and a content creator. Fascinated with all things marketing and the self-professed marketing nerd.
You are indeed. And you're a good person to ask questions, which is why you've jumped on this call for us, just in case our questions weren't good enough.
Yeah.
We like to give good answers. Hey, listen, so we're here to talk about the social media report that's just been released, and we're pretty excited about this. This is something that I keep a close eye. I think it'll say how long. So basically, for those people that have never heard of or haven't seen it before, has been called Census Social Media Report in the past. It's now called Yellow Social Media Pages Social Media Report. Whack it into Google. This will come up. Then click on the link, the 2020 report. As far as I'm aware, it's certainly new this financial year, maybe a week or two it's been live. So what we've done is we've downloaded the two reports. It comes in two parts. The first part is how consumers use social media, and the second part is how businesses, in fact, this is what that link is there, is for businesses. The second part is consumers. Now, clearly for Diffy Social, we work with businesses and particularly small businesses. Just for understanding, you guys know this, but others might not. Businesses are classed as any business that employs less than 20 people. So in other words, 19 and under. Generally speaking, we know sole trader, non-employing. Micro business employs 4 and under, okay? And in fact, did you know, Ria, have a guess, what percentage of businesses are micro or non-employing? Have a guess.
Oh, guess. 15? Top of my head.
15% of businesses. How about you, Tim? Do you want to have a guess? Marketing nerd?
Yeah, I think there's a trend of a lot of people, starting a side hustle and all those kind of things. So bringing that into factor, maybe 20, 25%.
I'm going to freak you out right here now. 60% of businesses, maybe 65% of businesses are non-employing. 87% of businesses are micro and less. Hence, Ria, when we go to B&I meetings, how often do you see a business that has 5 or more people in it? Not often.
No.
You only have to look around the room in a B&I meeting to realize that the percentage of small businesses is ridiculously high. I'm going to freak you out even more. Basically, small to medium, now that you know that 87% of businesses are basically extra small, how many do you reckon are small?
As in the 19.
It's
plus.
ridiculous. It's 90% basically are in that sort of percentile. The reality is large business, and this is a percentage I do know, large businesses actually only represent about 1% of the overall businesses, right? They employ a lot more, but corporations only represent a very small amount of businesses, just so you know, right? So that's why this small business report is so important, right? Because so much of Australia, you might have heard, is that Australia rides on the small business back. And that's why this is so important, right? So anyway, we're going to have a quick look at consumer and how the consumer uses it. And then we'll have a quick look at how businesses are using it, right? Because there's a huge opportunity for business. There was one stat that stuck out for me, but hopefully we'll get to it on the different page. So to start with, let's just have a look at this, the consumer report. And this is probably no surprise to anybody in terms of the key stats they talk about, right? 56% of Australians, so more than 50%, use the internet more than 10 times a day. That's incredible, right? Should point out that that's not just social media. That's the other interesting thing for small businesses. They tend to put internet, social, and search all in the one basket, right? But anyway, it's still an incredibly freaky stat is that we're using it and we're on it so much, right? Of those, 27% do so in excess of 20% times a day. Right, I'm probably up there. The average number of internet-enabled devices is 3.3. So in other words, we've got our mobile, we've got our laptop, and potentially we've got a desktop and something else. That's nuts, right? 31% claim the amount of time they spend on social media use has increased over the last year. Okay, that's good. Particularly, I imagine people in Melbourne at the moment would be using it a bit more. So this is the social media part. 89% of people use Facebook. So let's call it 90% of people. I've looked at this stat before, and Tim, you would know this, right? So they're saying it's slightly down on the 91%, and it's probably not the right time to be making any jokes here, but realistically, if you take out people 13 years and under, and you take out people probably in their high 80s, and then you go 91% or 89 to 90% of the population are using social media, but you take out those two age groups, you're pretty much talking about 100% of the people that are allowed to use Facebook are using Facebook. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
It would just be a very skinny amount of people that wouldn't be using it. YouTube is used by over half of Australians, right? And what we know is it's the second most powerful search engine, right? And we often say to our clients is it's actually the second best landing page other than your website, right? Because with YouTube is we can create a YouTube channel, we can put the website and all the social media channels in it, and we can load up videos if we want. In fact, we just worked with a client today where that's exactly what they're doing, because they've got a lot of videos they've produced. But while they get the web sorted out, they're going to use the YouTube channel as a way of sharing. 45% of use Instagram, so that's pretty high, and most popular amongst women. 1 in 5 Australians use Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Snapchat. So really what that's telling us is other than Facebook and Instagram, the others aren't as popular. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like Twitter in Australia has always struggled to really take off, apart from news reporters and sporting events in particular.
Yes. So I know that I'm roughly a rough stats. We've got it on our infographic, but Twitter and LinkedIn are amongst our key social media platforms. We think they're central. I think it's roughly 20% of the population, which is what it's saying for Twitter. LinkedIn is actually higher than what they're saying there. It's just that most people don't check their feed, which is what socials are all about, right? And no other social media platform is used by more than 7% of those surveyed, right? So is there anything that stands out that's obvious to you that's not on there? So this wouldn't have included TikTok, right?
That's what I was just about to say.
TikTok would be with a bullet, right? We'd imagine that's going to go. What's on ours, Ria, that we use? Is there anything else? So we've got LinkedIn, we've got Facebook, we've got Instagram, we've got Twitter. Clearly, they're not classing. They've talked about YouTube, but they didn't talk about Google, right? So Google owns YouTube, which is interesting. And I think when we get to the business side of the report, we'll see how there's a bit of Google, Facebook confusion when they're talking about social media, right? So let's jump to the reports, right? Just so you know, if I click on, hopefully this will bring them up. There we go. So we've actually already downloaded both the reports. You can download these reports, people. What we're going to focus on is this one. So we'll just keep it in the screen here. And I think to start with, we're just going to look at this, this executive summary. Is that right, Ria? So that's realistically, right. The first thing I noticed, and Ria's made a few dot points for us to sort of have a look as far as things that she's noticed as well. Well, we'll get that off the screen. If Steve can bring up his dot points. Oh, there we are. I've got it. Oh, no, I haven't. I'm going to go save. That's it. Right. So just bear with me while I get out the things that we were going to just have a chat with. So this executive summary, clearly the first 3 pages, hopefully should have the most juiciest bits for us to look at. And Ria's just made a couple of highlight points. I think I'm getting the wheel of death on my side of the screen here with my Word. But I think from memory, Ria, here we've got the commercial marketing aspects of social media. I think we were looking at a couple of these sort of stats. The first thing to notice is this report's been going since 2011, right? So that's so clearly they've now got numbers and stats. And I remember early doors. So it's fair to say that businesses have come on far more than what they used to be in terms of small businesses. So then basically, so what I'm interested to see here is basically says leading reasons why SMBs, so small to medium businesses, are to promote the business. So 33% of businesses, which is pretty low, right? Would you agree? 30% is pretty low of small businesses saying, well, I'm going to use social media to promote my business.
Very
Well,
low.
33%, that's a really low number, right? I'm going to use 28%. So, because these are clearly covered together, right? 28% create awareness and exposure. Well, that's kind of promoting your business as well, isn't it? It's kind of the same.
It's the same thing.
Although when we talk about promote, so Ria knows this, we talk about promote being paid, right? And then educating, marketing is the non-paid stuff. So I guess there you could argue that that's a combination of paid and non-paid. And then generation of sales, which is interesting, right? Because I think that again is surprising. 17%. I reckon if you asked most of the businesses we talk to that are advertising on social media, they bend us over wanting us to create sales. We have to educate that there is both the long tail of social media and that Facebook advertising to create a greater opportunity around acquisition of customer. I'd love it if Yellow would start to bring some of that language into this report, right? If they would start to realize in this report is that, and maybe it's a question they need to be able to ask their in their survey, is do you use social media as a way of acquiring new businesses or new customers, I should say, or do you predominantly use it as a way of retaining your business customers and educating them, right? Because Tim, you've heard me say this, Ria has heard me say it way often. There's only two reasons to do any marketing communications, including social media marketing communication, and that is to get new people, yes, which is what most people think about, but to keep the people coming back that already work with you. Get them coming back, be top of mind, right? And often people forget that, right? I can tell you at the moment, we just met with Braith yesterday in BNI. BNI is well and truly aware of that at the moment. They want to keep their members, right? Keep the members signed up. They don't want to lose members, right? And so there's businesses doing it tough at the moment, particularly in Melbourne and Victoria because of coronavirus. So it's pretty hard to keep doing marketing and networking if you can't leave your house or go within 5 kilometers of it, right? But anyway, retention is just as important as acquisition. And by the way, again, Tim and Ria knows this, small business typically only think of marketing as marketing communications as sales. But marketers, and you said it, Tim, we're marketing people, we're marketing geeks, was your term, is that we know that it's very rare that it's just marketing communications problem. Often there's a pricing problem. There's a distribution problem. Yes, there could be a promotion problem. We can help that. But there's often other issues. People, all those marketing P's that we love, right? Is often they need to be taken care of. So what marketers call marketing, small business just calls business, right? Anyway, I'm laboring the point here. So what do we got here? Following and trusting brands and businesses. This is written by someone in corporate. I said I wasn't going to go too much into the Yellow and the way they present this report, but this is written by someone in corporate. Small business don't talk in that way, right? Not in the same way. You'd need to educate a business to understand that they're a brand as well as a business. Would you agree? Yeah. So most small businesses want you to follow and trust their business. Their business is their brand in a way, right? But just so you know, it's not something that we think of in a way. But what we want to try and do is encourage people's target communities to follow them on social media, right? And the benefits of having them followed on social media, and particularly Facebook and Instagram, is if they're following, then we don't have to advertise to them anymore, right? Because as soon as they start following, then we can educate and promote and put our messages out. And we can do that knowing, even though Facebook have a stingy algorithm that might only let them see 1 in 10 posts, at least they'll see 1 in 10 posts, right? So then we no longer need to spend $1 to try and let them see the post. They already know, they already trust, they're working often with that small business, or they're part of the network, or they're likely to refer them as a small business. So that's the benefit of following and getting following. The way you get that is by following others. If you're not if you're not paying for it, then Tim, as Tim Beanland, and in fact, in Bean Talking, then Bean Talking needs to follow Diffy Social. It needs to follow local Melbourne brands, local Melbourne businesses that it's interested in and it's engaged with, right? And if you do that and show an interest in others, they will show an interest back in you. Is that what you found as well, Tim, with your?
Oh, definitely. I think one of the underappreciated things of understanding social media is in the first word there, social. So what you're talking about is following other accounts and contributing to another business in order to build a relationship. I think that's an incredibly powerful thing that businesses can leverage when it comes to a social media aspect, for sure.
Yeah, and look, you're you've seen it firsthand from being involved in some businesses for a while. You would understand this being from. I love it when we have country and regional parts of Australia involved in my business, particularly whether they're clients or people working with us, like Ria now. Country people get community, right? So, and Ria's been involved in the Kapunda markets, is it, Ria, or is it Barossa Valley?
Barossa, Barossa.
And so realistically, we understand communities offline, right? We just understand how, and we want to support, when do we see the signs out the front, support local, all that sort of stuff. We understand how you can support local, right? One of the ways you can support your local businesses is follow them, right?
Yeah.
So follow your local small business, know what they're doing, get their messaging, right? They're not going to pound you. You're only going to see, Facebook's not that generous. You're only going to see 1 in 10, 1 in 5 messages. So follow them, right? Anyway, that's probably best to say about that from a small business perspective. The interesting thing on the right, I know the other thing we were going to pick up here, Ria, is that it seems to me that that Yellow might not have picked up is there's only 2 ways to invest in your social media marketing, right? There is the ads, and what they've done is I think they've said about how many businesses are spending. I think I saw that on this one.
That was page 3, yeah.
Is it? Yeah. I'm on page 4. I've skipped a page. Okay. On page 3, it talks about ads and it talks about how much they're paying for management, right? So realistically, understanding that when we invest in social media marketing, there's 2 investments to be made. The first is to have someone manage it and market it for you, right? Now that could be the same person that answers the telephone, does filing and does other elements for the business. It could be the business owner themselves, which is often the case, which this report talks about. It's often the business owner themselves doing it, right? But they often wouldn't qualify how much time they spend on it, right? So realistically, if we do, when we prepare proposals and pricing with our clients, we make it very clear that there's a spend that comes to Ria or Steve to manage your social media marketing communications and your Facebook advertising. But there is also a spend that goes straight to Mark Zuckerberg when we advertise at $5 a day or whatever it is, because Facebook ads owns Instagram. And that's the other reason why there's a bit of a disconnect between Facebook and Insta in this survey, because I don't even know they've made it clear to people that it's one and the same for all intents and purposes, right?
When you go and advertise on Instagram, it's done through the business manager platform on Facebook.
Yeah, that's right. So we use Facebook Ads Manager, and clearly you want to target it to a community that is basically the ones that are going to see your messages and get them, that you're not going to waste money if you're going to promote. The thing I just want to pick up quickly on the right-hand side, it's interesting, it's given a whole column to social influencers. Poor old social influencers are doing it pretty tough in coronavirus environment. But there is only certain businesses where that's suitable for. It's not it's a very different strategy to what we do as marketers. Generally speaking, social influencers will only use Instagram and potentially back into Facebook page, but largely it's Instagram. And largely it's stuff that has yummy type things to eat or beautiful places to visit. And it's generally real time. And they're the freelance type social media marketing people that are actually quite good at photos, videos, and they get paid by the person to share it to their following. Does that make sense? You understand that, right? So in other words, if I've got a following of, we've got one of our marketers who's there with Ria, right? So she has an Instagram account with over 500,000 followers, right? So clearly, and she has been asked recently if someone wants to promote on her Instagram channel. Well, clearly it's not as a result of promoting through the channel of the person that's asking, which is our model, right? It's to promote on the channel which our marketer Lauren has, in order that they'll get exposure to people that they wouldn't have otherwise had exposure to. Correct? Yep.
Yeah.
So completely different model of marketing, something that Lauren can perhaps do as a side hustle, but the rest of us, it's not part of our marketing kit bag, just so you know. And it's generally not suitable for most businesses, right? For most small businesses.
If I could just, before we move on, if I could just also note that just on 2 previous points as well, just some of the language as well that you were picking up on before, like it's a bit unclear. I don't want to drag on yellow, but it's a bit unclear as to, like, it says the average estimated annual expenditure by small to mid-sized businesses is just over $3,000. And then later, just down a couple of sentences, it says small to mid-sized businesses spend a total of almost $7,600 on their social media each year.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I'm not quite sure how that works. The one thing that I wondered, and I've said this to Tim before, right? So there's I think it works out to about 5% of businesses that are actively using social media and advertising, right? So if you add the two together, it's a percentage of the percentage, it becomes very small. So then what you have is there's ones that are doing it in-house, so they've got someone in-house or they're doing it themselves, so the time doesn't get costed in. But then there are others that use people like Yellow and or agencies, and then it all gets coupled in together, right? So that basically agencies will then charge them for their ad spend and for their time management, and it'll be a collective spend, and it possibly even goes into Google as well. And so I think that's why there's the difference in spend, Ria, because it combines the medium businesses with the small businesses, and some of the medium businesses would be using agency. That makes sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I reckon. That's why, right? So this is the other thing is, again, Google / Facebook, a little bit of confusion for mine, right? Is that you basically have online comments, ratings, and reviews. Now, where do we usually expect to find online review? Google, right? Facebook has made a play because we can review on Facebook, and certainly now even Google, you'll see on Google mapping now, you'll see the Google and Facebook at times, so you can actually, they couple them. But realistically, online reviews is usually the span of Google, not social. But reputation management, increasingly, social media does have a place to play. And you talked about it before, actually, Tim. I like what you said, right? Is that corporate often think only about broadcasting, right? They broadcast their messages, whether it's advertising or their daily, and they're constantly broadcasting. It's amazing how often, big and small, we come across businesses, they're not following anybody else, right? And basically they're not engaging with anybody else, right? So a lot of them just don't know how to go to their feed.
Well, sometimes they're not even engaging on their own posts.
Yeah, no, so their own posts, exactly. There's no feedback, so they don't even know they've got that engagement correct. That's a good point. Yeah, so you could make a note, and you know then that it's probably somebody that hasn't had time. So, so realistically, that's a good point. So they're not even monitoring the own commentary and engagement they're receiving back at them. Right?
And it's almost a perceived thing. So you mentioned TikTok. I grew an account to about 20,000 followers on there, and what was happening in the comment section was very interesting. When I replied back to somebody, they were almost ecstatic that I replied to them, because it's this account of influence responding back to the person, and that just creates such a great relationship. You know, that person's going to be eager for the next video that I put out based on, you know, the small typing that I've done and the small effort that you've taken just to reply to a comment. But you go to some of these larger profiles and you just scroll through their comments and nobody's replying back to anything. I think there's a missed opportunity there, don't you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's I think I told you one of my first and sort of my greatest learning project was Melbourne Tigers in their last year, and because I was a sport and recreation guy, I sort of looked at their feed and I'm like, you guys are only following 6 things and we're a one-team basketball town. That makes no sense to me. I said, and so basically within the preceding or the following weeks, I reckon I went through and followed every single Melbourne junior basketball person, anybody that was media that had ever followed them. And then I went over to the NBA and followed all the majors where I had Australian players and that sort of stuff. It made an incredible difference, right? In terms of their following went, and not just that, to your point, we would respond to people. So there was always the 5 or 6, almost nowadays they give them a name, your diamond followers or something along those lines, all-star followers. And it's funny, even in things that have a high profile, there's often the 5 or 6 people that are just there, the fanatics, and they comment on everything, they retweet everything, they reshare, and you get to know those people, right? So you can actually have you can have high visibility with things that are actually quite visible, right? And so I remember doing a bit like you said and replying to the under 12s, Melbourne Tigers, let's say it was, but basically, and they were like, the heck, Melbourne Tigers just retweeted me, so people love it, right? So it's easy to forget that.
Yeah, and I guess to look at somebody listening to that going, okay, what's the return on investment on that, or what's the result on that, is the increased relationship that you have with your end consumer is just incredibly valuable there.
As you said, ultimately, what's it about? It's building trust and relationship, right? And so corporates can often learn from small business on how you go about doing that, right? So listen, just this last one, because this is the kicker, right? So measuring social media ROI and success, right? So we often say to people, because they'll come to us, how many leads are you going to give us? We're like, I think you're speaking to the wrong consultants, right? We talk about objectives, right? So about protecting your brand on social media, growing in your trusted relationships, and ultimately growing your sales and getting more business, right? So that's the sort of step through, if you like, what we talk around objectives. It's interesting here how they will quantify, right? 31% of small to medium businesses measure their return on investment. That's pretty low, 30%, right? So you're only 30% are measuring it, right? From social media by monitoring response numbers on social media. Response numbers, really? Okay, well that's one thing you could do, right? But I would say again, that's a corporate thinking, right? The way we report on insights is how much reach are we getting? So in other words, how many people are seeing what we're posting? Of them, how many people are engaging with what we're posting? And here's the main thing, which this report doesn't get and most people don't get when it comes to social media. How many people are going to find out more? And we send them to the website, right? So how many flares is the business that we're now working with doing social media marketing getting to the website pages, and are they going to the call to action, and ultimately are they doing what they want us to do? So how many people are finding out more? Ultimately, that's the bottom line. That's the key return on investment when you're doing social media marketing. Not how many more am I going to sell? Well, that depends. How good are your calls to action? How good are you at closing sales? Ultimately, we'll give you the best opportunity to achieve through social media, but you need to understand what we're trying to achieve, okay? So the objectives aren't simply just how many people are engaging with us. That's a dumb way of measuring your success, right? Social media is measured through sales, revenue, profits, 62%, followers, subscribers. It's pretty hard to achieve. Take up on incentives, 32%, right? Okay, so those sort of things there are the return on investment stuff. So in actual fact, they did touch on those. I just kind of maybe cut it short, but it is there in that last sentence. There is somewhere in here, and we find it through. So we've talked about already small business. We know that most small businesses in Australia are micro businesses, right? So Ria, when I stand up generally in front of business community, I tell people that we work with extra small to small businesses primarily. They're most of the people we talk to, right? It's kind of funny when people stand up and say they work with small to medium businesses, because the reality is there's not that many medium businesses, and generally speaking, people aren't working with the medium-sized businesses, right? Just so you know. They're generally working with small, extra small, or sole traders. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's good.
Tim, I know you're working with the gyms group, and so clearly that's an exception to the rule, the stuff that you've done with gyms. where, basically you've got a multi franchise type business. But in the main, and you can literally say that you do work with small to medium, but you work all the way up, right? So you basically work from small to medium all the way to corporate, which is what the Gyms Group is, given your podcasting. But the reality is, it's probably as a result of the work you did with small business and small business people that got your foot into the door for the medium and the corporate. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, it's fair to say. I haven't done any sort of video content with them, but I did a podcast with the Gyms Group.
Yeah, that's right. So it helps
Yeah.
show you for being able to do that. So here's just some of the numbers. So that was the executive summaries. Here's some of the numbers that we know. What does social media presence include? So this is actually small business. So 90% of the small businesses that are on social media. So that's all this is telling us, right? This isn't telling us that 90% of them are on Facebook, because they're not. It's already told us that far less than that. So basically, I think it's just over. So for small businesses particularly, Facebook continues to be used, small or medium, for a number of years. Facebook has consistently been used by 90% of SMBs. Now, the problem there is they've lumped the B's, the M's with the S's, just so you know, because the S's are a lot smaller than the M's. Does that make sense? 90% of small businesses are not using social media. And I tell you a fact that I heard the other day, which was staggering. Shout out to Matt Smolin. Oh, no, it wasn't. Sorry. Wrong shout out. Video guy. It was a shout out to another one of my video guys whose name escapes me, and I hope he doesn't watch this. That's terrible. But realistically, less than 50% of businesses actually have a website.
Yeah.
Right? Less than 50% have a website. So believe me, 50% tops of small businesses have a social media presence and have ever used social media. Often they're dormant Facebook pages. So basically, clearly the one that they should be using is Facebook. I'm surprised that Instagram sits under LinkedIn, although they're virtually the same. Very few would actually have a YouTube channel, although they may well have they may well search on it. So why are they using it, right? So this is what we saw as in the executive summary before. So this is a little bit screwed. It says somewhere or rather it said that so we're going to get to it, right? But this is so obvious. So somewhere it tells us in this report that less than 13% of small businesses have any strategy. We're going to get to it, right? And this is evidence of that. Less than 15%. 13% of businesses, I think it's 11% in the city, 11% in the country, 13% in the cities have a strategy for social media. Scary, right?
Does that mean they're just doing a shotgun approach, hoping something will stick?
That just means they've whacked up a Facebook page and every now and again they've posted something on it. That's all that means, right? So anyway, that is evidence that we're probably lacking in strategy and direction. And it's a confusing world for small business, just so you know. And this doesn't help the confusion, just so you know. When a large agency puts it out and there's some overlay between search and social, it's confusing, let alone the fact that we're trying to integrate medium-sized businesses, which aren't that highly represented, and small businesses. Also confusing in terms of the landscape. Who do you reckon Yellow wants to work with?
Yeah, the larger businesses.
Yellow wants to work with the 11 plus businesses, right? That can afford a much larger spend, right? Facebook wants to work with them as well. Just about everybody wants to work with those businesses. They don't really want to work with micro and sole traders, believe me. The good thing for us, they treat our dollar the same, but they don't want to work with us because why would they? They can get a lot more money. The thing that they haven't factored in is there is a lot more of us, right? There's more than 2 million small businesses in Australia. More than 2 million businesses. Get them all spending $100 with you rather than trying to get 20,000 spending 1,000 with you. Smart strategy, right? If I was in corporate, that's what I'd be telling them. And now I'm starting to sound like I've got an ego, so I better slow down. And I never got a gig with Yellow, so I guess that's probably the other thing that starts to come out. My chip on my shoulder. Rightio. So what's this? And so this is interesting. What do they find most frustrating? Negative comments. So this is the people that have actually used it, right? It's interesting how many small business use this as a barrier to entry. I'm worried that if I put up a social media and I post on it, I'm going to get negative comment. You might, but in my experience, no one can be asked. Most of the time, people aren't even going to see your post because you're not promoting them, or you're using it like a landing page. The reality is this shouldn't be a barrier to entry into social media, right?
Yeah, I think it's something to take on board with negative comments, trolls, reviews. If somebody takes the time to out of their day negatively comment on something that I've posted, I feel really bad for them. They must be in a really bad headspace, because if you're wasting your time doing that, then it just makes no sense. And you see this with the AFL as well. Last week there was a bad umpiring call, and all these trolls get on. Yeah,
sometimes it is one of those things too. The other thing is we have a rule, basically, first comment. If it's a comment and it's a fair comment, we respond to it and we treat good and bad the same, right? Thanks for your feedback, and we try and take it offline if that's the most appropriate thing to do. The second thing is, if it is a troll, delete, remove, block, right? So basically, the other thing you can find is sometimes people try and get ambush free marketing. And so we've had this on occasion where they see that something's going, where they see an advertised post or they see something that's going quite well virally, and they'll put their own brand on it and they'll try and get a bit of mileage as a result, right? So again, we delete, block. Yeah, so it's not a barrier. I can tell you, having been involved with more than 350 businesses, I would say less than 1% do we ever see that, right? And assuming you're good at what you do, right? Assuming you're good at what you do, then realistically, you're not gonna get people having a crack at you, right? Let's fly through this. Let's try and wrap it up a little bit. But here you go. Here's some of the stats, right? Have you paid to use advertising? So we know that 34% now of small businesses have paid to use advertising. Again, 34% of those that have ever had used Facebook, right? So again, a very small percentage, slightly higher than in the past, but still small, right? I'm surprised that Instagram is low, given that Facebook ads and Instagram is in the same account. So realistically, often it'll apportion the share. And Instagram advertising, with its call to action nowadays, is equally as advantageous often as what Facebook is. I find it very difficult to justify LinkedIn ad spend and Twitter ad spend, but we are investigating it. But generally speaking, everybody's on Facebook and Instagram, which is what we've already seen today. You may as well focus where everybody is and where you can get the best bang for your buck. So it makes sense that they're focusing in the right areas. Just a little bit surprising that Instagram is down. How do you drive traffic? Now, this is interesting, right? This is what I wanted to pick up on. How do you drive traffic to your social media presence? So the way I would read this, so this is only relevant because this is relevant when you're talking to a 40 plus person. When we've set up someone on social media, so our avatar is 43 to 63, just so you know, Tim. They're a 43-year-old to 63-year-old business owner.
Fantastic.
Right? So you need to let people know that you are on social media, because those people won't even think about it. So how do you do that? You put it on your business card. You put icons on them, right? You put your LinkedIn, you put your Facebook, you put your Instagram, you put your Twitter. You might even put Google on there, because then if they search you, your Google map will come up, right?
Yeah.
And that's where they can see how to review. That's how you drive people to your social media. Then you put it on your banner behind me. Google Plus doesn't exist anymore. You put them on you put it on your signage. You put it on your vehicle. That's how you drive people to your social media. However, that's not the intent of social media. The intent of social media is to drive them to your telephone, to your email, and to your website. So this isn't a strategy in itself. This is a 50% strategy. Yeah, get them on and seeing your social media posts, because social media is all about newsfeed. Get into your target community newsfeed. Once you're in the newsfeed, get them to your website, your telephone, your email, your bricks and mortar store, office, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
That's
take
the
online
strategy.
to offline.
That's the strategy. Where do I get more information now I've seen it in the feed? Because we know, Ria, the amount of people that visit our page, so even Diffy Social, right? On our actual wall, our Facebook wall, I think we had a record month. I think we had about 400 people visit our wall, right? But
Yeah.
400 people is chicken feed compared to the 40,000 people that saw our stuff in the feed, right?
Yeah.
It's nothing. So it's not about your wall. And people that curate images on Instagram, you do my head in, you're wasting time. Advertise and just promote a message that people will see, because no one's coming to your wall, right? Very few people are, and you're wasting time. There is much better ways to get bang for your time investment and your money investment. So anyway, I'm banging on, I'm preaching, but that's okay. That's kind of what this was about. Offering incentives, good strategy, but I would say this: make sure that your offer is as compelling as your rivals. So you need to have a good offer. It needs to be as good as your rivals, right? It doesn't need to cheapen you. It doesn't need to be cheaper. It doesn't need to necessarily be even outstanding. Just have a good offer, a consistent offer, stick to it, right? And if you're going to do it, rather than incentivizing by competitions and blah, 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 don't do it. It's much better value to put $1 on it.
Yeah, I'd also say if you're going to do a giveaway or a competition, understand the context. Like, I'm seeing giveaways at the moment about holidays. You know, no one's going to enter that giveaway because where are we going to go? Like, so
I go to Conway
yeah,
Fish and Chips down here
yeah,
in Footscray. I think you're right, exactly. So it needs to be sensible, as you said. I mean, particularly around lockdown, your offer needs to be something that is essential right at the moment. If you were doing that, look, most people that's not where. I guess at the moment it's not right to be talking about offers
true.
when it comes down to Victoria. But ultimately, at the moment, you want brand awareness, and if you're going to spend $1, more's the point. Rather than spending it on the $1 that you have to spend on the competition cost, which will attract people that aren't ever going to do business with you. Would you agree? People
Yeah.
just want to win the competition prize. Whereas you could spend $1 and just promote your offer as a business, and then you only get your target audience seeing it, right?
Or even the giveaway could be something target specific. So, for me, if I want to help people produce more podcasts, I could do a giveaway of a podcast microphone instead of $100 gift card, because the people that enter that competition go, oh, okay, I need a microphone. So being specific, something that your target audience actually wants is something to think about too.
Yep. We've talked about online comments, business investment. We've talked a little bit about that. Here's some of that breakdown, Ria. So content, we talk about content should go onto your website. This talks about how they're doing it, approximate percentage of your marketing budget, which is, again, you'd need to know what your objectives are when you talk about marketing budgets. And I think this is a confused report when it comes to small business and how you budget for your social media in accordance with the rest of your marketing communication. Social media management, here's something that we picked up. So despite strong preference for partial outsourcing has been adopted by 14% of small to medium businesses, while 8% have chosen to fully outsource, right? 8%. Now, largely that would be medium businesses, not many small businesses, right? Within small businesses, the business owner or manager is most likely to be running it, right? So what does that tell us? We know most are sole traders. Of course, they're the ones that are going to be managing it. They're doing it by themselves. And then the others, it's interesting. So even that's slightly scary. Only 36% is the marketing department. The others have given it off to IT and communications maybe, right? But I would say that your communications isn't as well placed even as your marketing, on the basis that we're going to measure, whereas communications is just going to broadcast more so, right? How often do you update? Well, we talk about a habit. So for us, it's every second day at minimum for our extra small businesses. And we do every day for our small businesses as far as that habit goes. Total. And the idea of that is that the people following you will at least see one in every fortnight's messages. What's this one? Measuring. We've talked a little bit about measuring. So ultimately for us, measuring success is how many people are actually going to the website doing what we said, and how many people are seeing and engaging with the messages that we're putting out there. How do you estimate success, sales and things? I want to know where that strategy won and why I haven't got that right. So half social media, so half the small to medium businesses surveyed expect to spend the same amount, and 12% will increase their sales. Well, I would imagine that a lot of people, given what's happening in Victoria, are looking at what other opportunities exist, right? I'm a little bit miffed that I can't find where the strategy was. Somewhere
It's
in
page
there,
11.
did you see it? Did we
Yeah,
see where that was? What page was
it's on page 11. So it says 1 in 5 small to mid-sized businesses, or at 21%, do not have a strategy to drive traffic to their social media channels.
That's right. I think
Small
there was,
businesses are less likely.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna leave it on that page because, as I said, g'day, Adrian. We're recording. Oh, he's gone. Adrian's been and gone. Happy to have him on.
Aw.
We do have to close up. We've got a marketers meeting with Victoria in a second, but let's leave it on this, and let's just say that there is incredible opportunity for you in small business against your rivals when you realise that less than 13% have a strategy when it comes to social media, and less than 5% are both promoting and marketing their posts as well as advertising. So very
Wow.
small. So incredible opportunity for competitive advantage for small businesses if you take on board what this report's telling us. Do you have any sort of final things that we missed, Ria, that you want to pick up on?
No, I don't think so. Just looking over page 11, prominent way for SMBs to drive traffic to their social media channels is through links on their business website. Liking, following, or subscribing to other businesses or users on social media is another relatively popular method. So that community that you were talking about really comes into play.
Yeah, in fact, it does.
But only being used by 26%.
So Dan Andrews gave us another grant for our business, and I did share that across to the I'm a small business owner. And what you were saying before, Tim, is that probably 80% of the commentary was positive, but then you had 20% that really dislike the Premier at the moment. And so they finished up removing that. But what it did was there was an incredible amount of reach and engagement that occurred before we then went and promoted it, right? It is one way of gaining that. What I would say, Ria, just by way of, if people want to have a chat with you, they can always have a chat with you. They can have a chat with our other marketers. They all have showcase pages. So depending on where they are, Perth, Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, or Brisbane, look us up, and we're more than happy to have a chat. And for BNI members, we'll do a one-to-one and find out about your business and work out whether there's a way that we can help you address any gaps or opportunities that we have. Timbo, hopefully as well, we love having you on and talking with you. You know that.
Thanks for having me. It's been good. I think something to leave on, just mirroring what you said, the opportunity to use social media in a strategic way to actually drive traffic to your website, bringing customers on offline is still there if you look at this report, So that's something that I think some people may think they've missed the boat on social media, they've missed the algorithm, they've missed all that. That clearly isn't the case based on this.
I agree with you, Tim. That was a great way to finish it. And often people do think that. I've had people come back 3 years later after they spoke to me the first time, and often it's another barrier. They think, I should have done it years ago. No, it's fine. This is telling us people still aren't doing this. I'd love $1 for everybody that said to me, basically, it'll go away. It's no need to do it. I'll get, what's going to be the next thing? Well, if you didn't get on this thing, then you probably won't get on the next thing, right?
Yeah.
So as you said, the next thing at the moment is probably TikTok. We're looking at that. But whether it'll be better for business, I wouldn't think so. Snapchat's not better for business, right? At the end of the day, Facebook and Instagram is best for business, most likely. And then you've got your LinkedIn all-star profile as well. But I think that's an awesome way to end it, Tim. There is never a better time to at least explore it and consider it. You haven't missed the boat.
Yep.
Awesome, guys. Thanks heaps.
Thanks.